I've been looking forward to this sincerely and immensely for a year, and I feel so honored to be here with you. I really do. This is just a real gift to me that God's allowed me here in this space with you. I just love you to death, and I feel like I'm practically leading like a young life group in my own home, with my own kids. I have 5 kids, you guys, and 2 of them are in high school, and 2 are in middle school, and 1 is in elementary. It's just so many. There's so many of them. But my oldest son, Gavin, he's a senior this year, and so I'm starting to panic. I don't know. Do any of you have kids in your own life that are seniors? Yeah, it's such a weird time. I'm getting all wobbly and wonky, and so I told my husband Brandon this last summer, I'm like, baby, this is it. I'm like, we are out of time. Like, we've blown it. I don't know where the years went, but it's over. So we just need to we need to make some memories, like baths, like Ponto. We need some road trips, I think. I think that's what we need, is we need to get in the car and drive somewhere with the family. Brandon was like, do I have to come? I was like, yes, mister. So we, this past summer, decided to take this huge family road trip, like a 12-hour road trip to Missouri from Texas. Did any of you travel this summer with your people, like in a car? If you did, then you know that what I'm telling you right now is a fact. That sometimes just like getting out of the house is just so challenging. You wonder whose idea was this, like in the first place. You know what I'm saying? And I happen to be married to a guy who's like, tells me the night before, Jen, we are leaving, we are pulling out of the driveway at 8 a.m. sharp. And I'm like, baby, what planet do you live on? Like, we're half packed, this whole operation is half baked, we've got to get it going. So we're not leaving at 8 a.m. He's like, we are leaving at 8 a.m. and I'll tell you why, because we're the parents, we're the grown-ups in the house, and these children have to obey us and do what we say. So the next morning we pull out maybe 5 minutes before 10. And Brandon is not speaking to any of us. You know what I'm saying? It's tense, is my point. And you know that I could not possibly make this up. I promise you that we're 10 minutes into this delightful trip. And Remy, my youngest, who's a 4th grader, she says, Mom, I really need to go to the bathroom. So I'm like reading the room, and I turn around to her and I said, at this juncture, in this fragile place that we are in, I feel like it's probably best if you just pee in your pants. Work that out. So honestly, half the time a road trip with your family's fun. Like half the time I'm delighted. I'm thinking, look, this is so cute, they're so cute, they're off the car, we're like taking a road trip like in the movies, right? And it seems charming and I'm working myself up into like a good feeling about it, okay? But the other half of the time, it sounds like, stop touching me, stop looking at me, stop breathing, stop humming, stop singing. I don't like this snack. I want a different snack. I'm hungry. I don't want to stop here. I don't like this music. I need to go number 1. I need to go number 2. I want to stop, not this place. And I'm like, and so during this verbal assault, Brandon puts his headphones on and pretends like he's the only person in the car. Let me tell you something, and I'm very serious about this. When I grow up, I want to be a dad. So what it sounds like, of course, is mom, 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 mommy, mom, 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 mom. So during this growth. In the car a long time, so this gives me the chance to work through what I call like the 4 stages of road trip management, okay? You can borrow these on your next Young Life trip. The first, I'm gonna say 3 hours. That's probably about as long as stage 1 can last. I'm gonna call it patient optimism, right? There's still just a touch of nurture to the whole thing. So it kind of sounds like, children, let me help you work out this problem that you're having so that we can come to an agreeable solution in which everyone feels satisfied. It's like that. It's like that. But somewhere around hour 3, somewhere in the 3rd hour, what happens, the problem is that I'm having a hard time continuing to care about their problems. I'm struggling. And so it gets a little shorter, and it sounds a little bit more like, you know what? Nobody gets to call a seat. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? I bought this car with my money that I earned. I own your seat. I call seats. The mom calls seats. If you would like to call a seat, then you make it a job. Okay? That's how it sounds. It's shrinking up, you know what I mean? And I'm not exactly sure, this isn't science, but I feel like around maybe hour 7, maybe 8, it moves into stage 3, which I don't know what else to call it except for terrifying serial killer mode. I don't know what else to say. You know, like when you've just gone dark, like you're just like dead inside. There's nothing. Your voice gets quiet. It's so scary. And that's when I say, nobody else for the duration of the trip may call me Mom. Just call me Jen. If I hear Mom one more time, I will throw myself out of this moving car. And I will take at least 2 of you with me. It's like maybe the last 2 hours of a 12-hour road trip is the last stage. And this is what I'm going to call quiet acceptance. Really, in the last 2 hours of a road trip is when I become a 5-point Calvinist. Because the kids are like, are we ever going to get there? And I'm like, you know what? It's not for us to know. If it is God's will, we will get there when He predestined us to, okay? Suffering's just part of being a Christian. I'm laughing as I'm thinking about you because I know how many trips you've been on with students, and I want you to know that I am in that space. Fred and I were in student ministry for 10 years. When we first came out of college, and I cannot count the number of road trips and bus trips with a bunch of middle schoolers and high schoolers that we have endured in our life. I am your sister in misery on that, okay? I'm so serious. And so it's all the same, the stages. In fact, I remember laughing so hard, right? When Brandon was still a student pastor, we got home from a long bus trip with like 300 kids somewhere. And I remember when we got back to the house after weekend, Brandon says to me, do you think that is it a problem that I'm the student pastor and pretty much hate middle schoolers? No, I'm so serious. Shout out to the middle school leaders, I'm not even kidding. You guys, I have 2 middle schoolers and they're both boys. It's so hard. Life is so hard. Caleb, my 8th grader, this is mean. I hope you can filter this. He was talking to Brandon this week, just yammering some nonsense, whatever it is they say. And, what is it? What are you saying? What's coming out of your mouth? And Brandon looks at him and he said, Caleb, I can actually hear you getting dumber. Okay, so I want to tell you so many things today. I wish we had more time. First of all, I want to tell you this. I want you to know right off the bat, before I sort of get into some things I want to share, that Young Life is very, 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 very special to me. Our first interaction was Young Life was back when we were student pastors in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we had a really nice, we liked you. Like, we had this vibrant relationship between our church youth ministry and the Young Life in our city, and it was just so good and healthy and powerful and collaborative. And then even just in our own family, our own kids started with Young Life back in Wildlife. We would drop them off to the wildlife leaders with 200 or 300 of them. And we're like, you guys, I don't know, go with God. And then my kids have moved on. My high schoolers are in Young Life, and it's so powerful for them. And their leaders have been so important to their stories. I mean, they've come to their games, and they've come to their competitions, and they've taken them to I don't know how many tacos and coffees, and they loved our kids so deeply and in such a tender and a special way, and in the space that only they can. And then I've mentored through Young Lives with the teen mamas, who I adore. We've got in our city, we have the high school with the most amount of teen pregnancies in Central Texas, and we work with Young Lives through that program. And so we all, the Hatmakers, have been to Young Life camps and Young Life retreats and Young Life lock-ins and trips. Like, the Hatmakers are incredibly vested. Last year, I taught at Windy Gap, and last summer even, I went to Malibu. Don't tell me that your life is hard. This is a hard job. You're very meaningful to me and to the life of my family. And so, I mean, I don't come here as like having to look you up on the internet trying to figure out what it is you do. You know what I'm saying? I'm into you. So what I want you to hear from me this morning, I want to start by telling you this. Your work really matters, okay? Your impact is really far beyond what you even know, what you could even possibly fathom. And I want you to know that in my assessment, this is a good use of your life, a really good use of your life. You're ministering to a generation right now that is absolutely struggling to find God, and they are not finding Him within the four walls of the traditional church anymore. So you are sincerely missionaries to this next generation, because you have gone to them where they are and exactly how they are. And let me tell you, this has been my message to the church for years. I think your model is right, and it is so good. We have so much to learn from the way that you love kids and the way that you serve your cities and your communities. I want to affirm you this morning, and I want to remind you, and I'm sure you heard it this week, but just let me add my voice to the chorus of people saying to you that you are running a good race right now. I want to remind you so that you can also go back and remind your staff and your volunteers in all the cities and all the countries that you represent. They are running a good race right now too. And it's crucial at this point. I'm a data girl. I know that's just exciting. Come speak to us. Data, statistics. Yay. But here's something that I recently learned from Barna, who tells us kind of what's the state of Christianity right now? What is it? What's the state of the church? Like, he takes the temperature of our spiritual climate and reads us back an assessment. And he is almost always right. It's freaky. His predictions and projections are almost always spot on or very, very close. And what he predicts is this right now, that of the children and students who are raised in the church right now, in it, that by the time they reach the age of 29, 80% of them will have walked away. I mean, 80% gone. Some of you, I know that you are here from all over. Some of you already minister in a post-Christian community or a post-Christian country. So this is your life, this is your daily life. But Americans are having a hard time catching up with this idea. We'd like to still believe we're at the center of American life, but you and I both know it's not true. Barna tells us that 18 to 22-year-olds, so just north of your crew, 18 to 22-year-olds claiming no religion is the largest sliver of that entire demographic right now. That's the biggest age group saying we have no religion, 22%, and it's doubled up from 11% in 1990. That is growing and growing and growing. And you know what? I know you know this because you spent your life on students. So this isn't a mystery to you at all, but you know exactly what young adults and teenagers are citing as their beef, right? With either the church or with any sort of faith community or spiritual environment. I know this is the big room, this is silly, this is a bad idea, but I'm already gonna do it, it's too late, I started. What do you think they are saying to, we're listening, Brandon and I are listening because we lead a church in a very post-Christian city. We are in a very secular environment, so we don't have the luxury of imagining that everybody's still super into God, okay? And so we know, like we are listening all the time, especially to young adults, because this baton pass is really important. Really, really important, and we care about it, and we see that the handoff right now is very, very wobbly. What do your students tell you is their primary problem with the church that they see, with the Christian community that they see? You can just shout it out. Judgmental. I'm sorry. Hypocrisy. Not real. What else? Did you say they don't love the gays? Yeah. No, that's real. That's serious. That's top of the list. They don't see themselves in the church, not represented and not present. What else? Sorry. Boring. You know, honestly, that one hurts. Boring. I'm like, oh, you know what? That cuts right here. That cuts. But it's true. Boring, irrelevant, mean. They see a church that is more aligned politically than they are with the gospel. Okay? They're just reading it out, guys. They're just reading the room. All right? This is not the time to imagine that young adults have no idea what they're talking about. Right? They're just making observations. They see arrogance rather than humility. They see defensiveness instead of inclusiveness. They don't see their place. And they certainly don't see a place for their friends. They're postmodern kids, you guys, and they're struggling deeply to connect with a modern church. Those are like words that we throw around a lot, and I have to keep reminding myself that I'm speaking to a lot of people who know exactly what is going on with the next generation. This is your work, so I know what you know what these words mean. But if I was going to take the idea of a postmodern generation and just explain it in one sentence, which is incredibly unfair, I know that, this is a very reduced explanation, but basically the next generation of kids who are growing up entirely postmodern, the soundbite for their generation would be, I don't have all the answers, and neither do you. And what's tricky about it is that just behind them, when you look at a modern worldview, which honestly probably a lot of us in this room have a foot in each, our generation sort of split the gap, but a modern worldview that dominated spiritual conversation for centuries would have said, I have all the answers, and so can you. Right? And so when we've got an old worldview saying, I have all the answers and you can too, and then we have postmodern kids saying, I don't have all the answers and neither do you, you can see that we are seriously failing to connect here. ideologically. What used to feel perhaps maybe certain and solid to some of us who were kind of raised up in a church tradition seems condescending and exclusive to students today. When we look at authority and say, authority can and should be trusted, this generation has been failed by authority. Their parents, their government, their church leaders. And so they have a very healthy skepticism of authority. In other words, they're not just going to drink the Kool-Aid because someone says it tastes good, right? They're going to experience God really differently than most of us did at their age. When I grew up, when I was a teenager, I learned apologetics. That was my primary tool to connect with my peers. Because what 16-year-old does not want to be told how theologically wrong he is? It really, people were just constantly dropping to their knees, getting saved all around me, all the time. That's what I learned. Very much, I have all the answers and so can you, right? This generation isn't like that. They really hunger for some good things. Community, justice, humility, anti-consumerism, or at least they say that. You know teens. They have big ideas. And they tweet it on their phones. Okay. But here's the thing, they don't typically like slick. Maybe that's a good way to sum it up. They don't like it prepackaged. They don't like it too tidy. And here's where the rubber meets the road, where I'm about to land the plane here for Young Life. Because they question everything, which isn't necessarily bad. We've got quite a few values leading the charge in our church culture right now that should be questioned. So because they question everything, they require safe, spiritual environments where struggles are not only discussed, but they're welcomed. They've got to be allowed to wrestle spiritually without being shamed, or we will lose them. We are losing them. Here's so obviously where Young Life fits in, where you have always fit, with such courage and with such commitment. Because I tell you what right now, our kids need desperately spiritual mentors. They do. And that mentorship is absolutely going to require. We don't have to feel this. We don't have to even see it if we're in a very homogenous environment. All we have to do is read the numbers and it will tell me that this is true. This sort of engagement requires a new language, a new posture, and a new kind of space to lead them in. It is. Young Life, 75 years of Young Life, it's extraordinary. It's phenomenal. In so many ways, it's unprecedented. We do not see that kind of longevity that often in ministry. Young Life has always been an alternative space for kids to find God, another space for them to find God. But perhaps a few decades ago, Young Life could have been also Young Life, or a secondary option to the church. But today, it's crucial. It's crucial. Kids aren't coming to church anymore. They don't want to come to church, and we can't get them in the door. And the ones that we do have, we can't keep them. 80% gone. I just can't imagine a generation where your work has ever been more important than the one that you are serving in. Because with the church struggling mightily to be safe, oh, bless her, she wants to be, but she struggles. Students are flocking to you. They're flocking to ministries where they can have open, non-judgmental dialogue, where they're not afraid to bring their friends who are gay, who are not a Christian, who are from a different faith stream, who are atheists, knowing that their friends will be loved and welcomed and invested in to the same degree that anybody else would be. You know, honestly, my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, had conversations with her young life leader that she was afraid to have in our own church that me and Brandon started. The heck? I mean, it is real. You're a safe place for this generation to find their way to God. I cannot even put a value on that. So, let me see which time we have. All right. Quick little bit of encouragement. There's a young adult poll done across all demographics, all generations, ethnicities, races. Young adults asked. They asked them, what would a faith space have to do to either draw you and or keep you? And this is what they said across the board. Absolutely the same answers no matter what. And in this order. Number one, community. You do this so well. Number two, social justice. They just can't sit by and watch a church keep spending money on more landscaping while the world's burning down. You know what I'm saying? This matters. I'm so glad it matters. Number three, depth. I know they act like fools, but they crave depth. They crave it. They want somebody to take them seriously and not patronize them all the time as if they are incapable of understanding complicated spiritual matters. Yes, they can. They're smart. They're smart and they're thinkers. But interestingly, the fourth thing they said, I could have probably guessed those first three, but the fourth one, mentorship. Paul wrote to the church in Corinth in 1 Corinthians 4, 15 and 16, he said, even though you have 10,000 guardians in Christ, you do not have many fathers. For in Christ Jesus, I became your father through the gospel. And then he said again, later in chapter 11, verse 1, follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. In verse 15, hear that word, guardians. It's from a Greek word called pedagogues. It translates to something very akin to a nanny, to like a babysitter. Okay? And so as I read this and I think about the students that you lead, it is a fact that the average student right now has 10,000 spiritual nannies at his or her disposal. Like, the volume of spiritual input that my kids alone receive is staggering. And y'all, half of it is crap. Okay, can we say crap in your life? Absolute crap. I mean, when our kids are getting their theology from Instagram, oh my gosh, okay? They can just pick it up. They can pick it up. All these little nannies launching spiritual care at them. 10,000 guardians. But Paul is saying here, a nanny is not the same thing as a parent. A nanny is not the same thing as a mother or a father. A nanny offers temporary care, but without any real buy-in, without any real responsibility. They're not going to be there when the wheels come off, right? They're not going to be there when it all runs out of steam, when it quits being fun and funny and cool. So many of you are spiritual fathers and mothers to your kids. For tens of thousands of them, you're the only one they have. You're it. You're in their actual lives, you're in their actual community. They've placed themselves under your spiritual leadership. You're actually invested in them, and they in you. You are a flesh and blood leader like Paul is talking about here. So in light of that, Paul says this, therefore I urge you to imitate me. Follow my example as I follow the example of Jesus. It's so sobering, right? Like, what a horrible thing to say. Just to be able to tell the people that we lead, you guys do what I do. You follow me, you watch me, and I'll show you what it means to follow Jesus. Yikes. But if I may, here's the good news on that. There is a silver lining to that charge. These days, especially, maybe more than ever, the very best way to lead it is to live it. Whether you lead students or you in here lead their leaders and you lead the staff, I want you to know this, Young Life. This is great news. What our students are telling us is this, what they actually crave, what they really want. This is what we are hearing from this. This is what we're learning. You do not have to bend over backwards to entertain them or impress them or provide the very best teenage environment that has ever been provided. You don't have to do that. I hope you don't feel that pressure. You don't have to be the coolest person they know. You don't have to understand correctly how to use the term squad goals. I can't get it right. I get corrected so daily, on the daily in my house. Guys, listen to me. Guys, I'm so serious. You can wear pleated Dockers, okay? I'm serious. They're not looking for cool anymore. They've got enough cool. The world gives them cool. You don't have to be an amazing teacher. You don't have to have all the answers. What we're learning is that you can best mentor your kids by living it. Love your spouse. Love the poor. Love the weird kids. Okay? Set in front of them a vision for what it could look like to love God as a grown-up. They're starving for it. They want something real and true that they can hang their hat on. I promise you, for this generation, well done trumps well said. Okay? Your actual faithful life is what they'll remember. And it's what will impact their faith more than anything else you do. Just be a loving, spiritual parent that they want to imitate one day. It's your very best offering. I'm going to wrap up with this. I should have more time with you. So. I don't know if you still get this. I'm not sure. I remember when I first got out of college in '96, and we moved straight into church work, right? Straight into church student ministry. I remember back then a handful of people for whom they had attention was like Young Life. Right? I don't know if this is still a conversation that you ever have to juggle or work with. They would say, you're taking kids from the church, right? Or you're not training them up in the way the church would do it, or whatever it is they say. I don't know. We never had this. We had a beautiful relationship with our Young Life team in our city. But I remember hearing it like, this is somehow not as good, or it's somehow not as full, or it's somehow not as complete, or doesn't quite count, or it's just extra, or it's just bonus, or whatever. I don't know if you still hear that from sort of traditional spiritual environments ever, or from the church, but I want you to hear this morning from a pastor's wife who loves the church and loves students, and I care about souls, and I want to see God's kingdom come in our generation. I want you to hear me say this. May we reach the next generation for Jesus by any means, wherever the gospel rises, however, and through whomever. You have my entire love and support and blessing over what you do and how you do it. In my opinion, you are not just a parachurch organization. Listen, and I mean this theologically. We are all the church. We are all the church. You know why? The church is where God reigns, and He reigns here. Okay? The church is where broken people can find sanctuary, and they find sanctuary with you. Okay? The church is where disciples are made, and disciples are being made here across the whole world. with every bit of spiritual authority God has ever given me. I bless you, and I bless your work, and I bless your lives. Heaven is going to be so much more crowded because of the faithful work of Young Life for 75 years, and may there be another 75 more. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Well done, good and faithful servants, well done. Let me pray over you. God, it is my immense honor to speak your blessing over these men and women today who love you, who love your people, who love kids, and have given their lives for this work. I am so humbled to be in front of them, and I just pray that you literally rain it down, God, that you rain down strength, that you rain down courage, that you rain down hope and energy and blessing over the work of Young Life. What an honor it is to pray for them today, God. Thank you for these men and women. Thank you for this organization. I know that you are so pleased. We're so pleased. May your kingdom come through their hands and through their hearts, through their homes, and through their work. It's in your good name.